So my name's Gil Paris. I've been doing music for a long time. Um, and so I am also an Ableton certified trainer, which I think is going to be kind of funny for this talk because we're definitely going to go over like a lot of Ableton stuff, but I also try to sort of get out of the box. Especially recently, I've been trying to get out of the box more and just do more things sort of away from the screen, and away from Ableton. Because I'm sure most people sort of probably feel this sometimes, like when you're looking at the screen and like you're looking at that blank screen every time you open up Ableton, it's like there's a limitless amount of possibilities right when you open it up. And so that's like, I don't know, it's sort of a lot to take in sometimes. And I think for me, I get tired of doing the same thing over and over and doing the same, sort of like the same entry point to making music, right? Like the same, just going about things the same way. Because I feel like that's really easy to do in Ableton. But that being said, I love Ableton. And then I also want to show you guys sort of this like DAW-less live setup thing that I've been working on that's like super fun and super nerdy. So that's going to be really fun. The first song, though, I got 2 Ableton sessions ready to go, and the first song that we're going to go over is called Fizzy Lifting Drink, which is from my album Galaxies Within Us, and it's with Big G and Jimmy Tense on vocals. And for me, this was like the first and maybe the last song that I was able to make a good Serum sound with. And now I try not to use, I haven't used Serum in months. And yeah, we are recording, Alex. I think it's all good. The stream seems healthy. CPU's running well. Everything looked good. Hopefully. I've never streamed on Facebook before, so this interface is quite a bit different. But I think everything's working. You can see me. You can hear me. And let me know. I'm going to push play on this, and let me know if the volume's good for you guys to be able to hear. Should I go higher? Is that banging?
When I would dream, they told me stop it. So much hate, it made me nauseous. Worked in silence, made me cautious. I exerted every option, count me out. Must think I lost it, losing sleep. Somehow I fought it. I heard life was a box of chocolates. Ain't shit sweet round here, it's toxic. Made the most.
Yeah, let me know if you guys go up or
we
down.
go hard and through a lot, so we party till we drop. Tell the neighbors it won't stop. Watch your shorty hit me up on days I need to pick me up. I just wanna live it up. Can somebody lift me up?
Thanks, Dustin. Yeah, this song, I was playing this out a lot before we even got the vocals on it. Before Big G even did their thing on it, and it works every time. Yeah, I will, Alex. I'm just playing from Spotify right now, just so we can hear the original, because the session we're going to be going over is actually like before the vocals were put on, and I'll get into all that.
I just wanna live it up. Can somebody lift me up?
I love that part. I love that part right before the drop. All right, cool. So let's take a look at the session. And Alex told me I had to have my blue blocking software off, so that's why I'm wearing the heavy duties here. So let me know if you guys can see, and also let me know if this is a good volume. It's a lot louder out of Ableton. Probably about right there, you think, guys? Okay, you guys, everybody here in Ableton now? I think it was a little hot at the beginning, but now it should be good. So I guess the first thing that we should go over is just sort of how my sessions typically are set up. And this is basically how I do it. Like, I'm going to have everything grouped. And this, honestly, this little loops track here, I don't know why that's not in with the drums, but typically I'll have it laid out with like this, where like the drums are up top, and then the bass, and then the synths, and then anything else. And this, again, this is the session without the vocals. And I think this may have been just shortly after Dom from Big G had given me the horns. So I had like written the horn part for it. And I don't know if that stuff's still, yeah, like some of this, like the trumpet stuff. So I came up with like a general idea and then just kind of sent it over to him. But yeah, this session doesn't have any of the vocals or anything because I'll flatten everything like once I get to a certain stage, and when I'm ready to stop fucking with it, like, because once you freeze it, like, of course you save like a different version of the session, you can always go back, but I like to just like try to move forward like as quickly as possible. So a lot of times once it sounds like pretty good, then I'll just like freeze stuff so that I basically can't go back and change it, just to kind of commit to it. But having all the drums here, like, I don't know, for me, organizing it like this from top to bottom, like thinking of like the drums is like the very foundation, and then the next thing that sort of like intertwines with the drums is going to be the bass, right? And then everything else is going to be sort of below that. I mean, this is kind of like a backwards way of looking at it, because typically you would look from the bottom up, but I think you guys understand what I'm saying. So with the drums, I use a Ghost sidechain here, and I know there's a lot of different ways to sidechain. Like there's there's like the kick plugin or whatever, LFO tool. There's that, and there's a bunch of other ones, but for me, like I always use the Ableton compressor, and this, like if any of my students are in here like watching this, they're gonna be like, dude, we've heard you say this so many times, so feel free to tell me to shut up at any time. But I use the exact same, well, I guess it's not really the same in this one, this isn't a good example, this may have been the older kick drum that I use, but I usually use the exact same kick drum for my Ghost sidechain every single time. And the reason why I do that is because through doing that so many times, depending on the tempo, I can basically guess off the top of my head what the release time of the sidechain needs to be, because it's always being triggered by the exact same thing. And because it's being triggered by the same thing, the tail, which is really like the tail kind of informs how much release you're going to have to add, because the release on the compressor is the release after the release of whatever the sample is that's triggering the sidechain. So I typically use the exact same drum sample, and in this it's just, which is what's weird, is that this isn't actually the sample that I use all the time. It's usually the Ableton 707 kick, but this is almost the exact same. Just has super short tail, nice attack. So a lot of my workflow are little things like that with the sidechain compressor, like just making sure that anything that I'm going to be doing multiple times or doing in every single session is kind of already taken care of. Like, and that goes back to sort of how these groups are set up, right? So like in my template session, typically I'll already have groups all set up. I'll have groups, and I'll have my 2 return channels, which we'll talk about those in a little bit. But I'll have all that stuff already set up, and maybe a few patches already, like as far as like a bass patch or something. Usually the Ableton's hip hop sub, which is like such a cliche thing to use for sub bass. But that being said, similar to using the same type of kick drum for the Ghost sidechain, the sub bass is the same in almost every single session, right? It's the same patch. And that means I'm able to get, for the most part, I mean, there's still human error, and there's still, since I'm mixing and mastering everything, I don't always get it right. But for the most part, the sub bass is kind of always going to be, it's going to at least be closer to being in the right place every single time, as opposed to like using a serum patch or something for sub bass, or changing up the sub bass patch on every session. So for things like that, sort of utility, sort of boring things, I just try to make sure that all that stuff is baked into the session and baked into my template. And a perfect example of that as well is using the, like, this isn't really a typical, excuse me, this isn't necessarily a typical sort of drum group chain. But at the time when I was doing my album, I think this was like pretty close to what I was using on a lot of the drums. But I mean, I'm sure you guys know this, the Endless Smile, which I think I just use this sort of like for effects and stuff. I don't even know if this is being, oh yeah, it is being automated towards the end. And I guess this is doing something with, I see the
Make
build.
your music stand out, get more views, and way more engagement. Bring your music to life. Get Music Visualizer. In every format, even for social media. Get started today. The link is in the description.
See the builds. Yeah. So that's a great plugin. It's, I mean, just look at it. It's so much fun. Like, and as you turn this, he goes, I love that. It reminds me of like Ren and Stimpy cartoons from like the 90s Nickelodeon stuff. But back to the sort of like the drum group and like general drum processing that I'll do. The UAD SPL Transient Designer is just so good. Like, there's only 3 knobs, but it's amazing. And I can even just play if you guys aren't familiar with what this does, but it'll be kind of subtle because it's not doing too much, but it's helping the kick drum and kind of controlling some of the tails on the snare and hats and stuff. So I like to use this in conjunction with the drum bus, or just use the drum bus, because now with the drum bus built into Ableton is so good. Like, it's great, and it's great to have a tool like this, because I feel like there's only so much you could kind of do with multi-band compression and even just regular compression to kind of do what the drum bus is now doing. And then on top of that, you have this like instant 808 knob, which is super cool. But just using that for a little bit of crunch. And typically, I feel like after this session, I started turning the dampening down here, like, so you can kind of be able to crush the drums and get a lot of that like high frequency hype. But you're able to do that without blasting your eardrums with the super high stuff. So bringing this down kind of works like a general EQ, which is great. Like, the drum bus is just so good. And I'd love to hear this with and without the drum bus real quick. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a big difference there. So I love that, and I love also using the Transient Designer before the drum bus, because the drum bus basically is acting as a saturator and a Transient Designer, but you know, instead of just like the one knob here, you know, you have 2 main knobs and then an output. So there's that, and then the Illustrious Sausage Fattener. Again, this is a great plugin. Like, and I know a lot of people will hate on the sausage fattener. I feel like a lot of people act like they don't use the sausage fattener anymore. And I know most of those people are lying because the sausage fattener is great. It still has its place, and I like to just use it. I mean, sometimes I like to use it on basses and stuff because it's kind of works as a great like final limiter. But yeah, just like a little, there's only, what's the percentage on here? Yeah, 0.06. Like just a little, like it doesn't take much. And this is also what's great about using multiple plugins that are, in a sense, all three of these plugins are kind of doing something similar. It's some sort of saturation or some sort of like, I don't know, it's not compression, but it is a little bit of compression and dynamics control. Maybe that's a better way to put it. So just using a little bit of all three of these just helps. And then it's like you're not just smashing it through one plugin, you're like lightly smashing it through multiple plugins. And yeah, Mustafa, is that how you say your name? That's awesome if that's your real name. Yeah, the drum bus, I've been messing around with that recently too. Like the drum bus is really great on buses and like plucks especially. Like anything that has you can put it on a lot of stuff, but anything that has like a drum transient to like that's why I'm saying pluck sounds, because you're able to really like beef up the sound and sort of design the tail of it and get some really nice like saturation stuff. So moving on, then I feel like this session, so I'm using the Universal Audio de-esser on here just to pull out some of those high frequencies, and I'm pretty sure that it was probably right after this session or in the middle of like once the vocals got on here when I got the Soothe plugin, because Soothe to me is like it's a boring plugin in a sense, but it's such a great tool to be able to control the high frequencies of stuff, and especially when you're distorting and compressing stuff pretty crazily, like where you're adding a lot of gain to stuff and really bringing stuff up. Like those high frequencies are really hard to deal with, and hard to deal with in a way that doesn't take away from how you want it to sound, right? So, and if anybody doesn't know not Soother, just Soothe, yeah. So I think before I found out about Soothe, and again, this session is like almost 2 years old at this point. Maybe even already 2 years old. So I was using this de-esser to try to basically, do what then Soothe would allow me to do. Because Soothe kind of works as a multi-band de-esser, so you're able to very finely tune it to pull out some of the frequencies that you don't want without like messing with the sound. Because again, that's what's really tricky, is like once you start distorting stuff and really start making stuff sound like tight and super like fat, like it's hard to deal with those upper bands of high frequency. So I mean, this is all, we're just going over the drum bus. But yeah, Soothe is amazing. I think in the other session we'll look at that'll be a thing. And then I'm using the Ozone 7 vintage limiter. This must have also been before I got Ozone 9 or 10. And yeah, this is fun. Let's hear what it sounds like with all of these off. Oops. Uno momento. Yeah, that's pretty drastic, huh? Like, like that's with it off, and that's with everything on. I feel like that's pretty drastic. But again, yeah, just doing little, and also I want to see. Okay, yeah, so nothing's like clipping when it's coming in, and then all of this is making it super, super loud. So yeah, okay, so that's the drum group, and that's I wouldn't say this is what I do every single time, especially this Isotope Vintage Limiter. I haven't seen this thing probably since I did this session almost 2 years ago. But using the drum bus, using the SPL Transient Designer, definitely almost on every single session. So the drums, so again, it's just pulling samples from Splice, and typically, this is all mostly Ramzoid stuff, or Ramzoid, is that how you say it? I don't know, he's a man. But this is what I'll typically do when I download like I'm gonna try to answer questions too. I need to be mindful of that. Jared, do you think it's worth it to upgrade plugins or not usually? I think it depends. Like Ozone is one of those ones that like I have a hard time upgrading because I think I was using 7. It must have been 7, and maybe I skipped 8. And then when 9 came out, which had the like where you could reference tracks in it, that's when I felt like, especially when I was finishing this album and doing all like the mixing and mastering, trying to get everything at like the same level. Like I think that's when I got Ozone 9, and that helped me drastically just to make everything sound about right. Yeah. So I did have Ozone 8. Oh no, so Ozone 8 is the newest one that I have, which I'm pretty sure they're on Ozone 10 now. So yeah, if it's a new feature, like if they come out with a new feature that's like an absolute game changer, which with most of the Isotope stuff they always are. So that's tricky. I mean, I don't know. Like I think that depends on the person. But I feel like there's so much that you could do with the plugins that we all like have available to us, like even just the bass plugins, like that. I don't know, you don't always need something to get the job done, but sort of back on this drum rack here. So what I'll do when I download like a bunch of, sometimes I'll just download like a whole pack of drums, or I'll just grab, anywhere from like 20 to like 30 different just like kick drums and snares and everything from Splice. Then typically what I'll do is, if I like most of those sounds, then I'll just throw them all into a drum rack like this and just toss them all in there. And then I basically have this huge like drum kit that I can pick from, instead of like going through, here and like loading each one and trying to sort through it that way. And then also using the pitch plugin here, like one of my favorite things in Ableton is the MIDI effects, because with this drum little loop here, like I can pitch any of this up. If I had the kits like laid out in the right way to where when you pitch it up, however far, like it's gonna, the original kick MIDI is gonna hit like the next kick MIDI. But this is a nice way just to be able to scroll through drum sounds quickly and change your kit. If you set up the drum rack right, like there, that's almost minus that clap. But I'll use the pitch plugin on anything like this where there's like a bunch of drums, and maybe I'm playing the drums on like a little drum pad or like a small keyboard, and don't want to keep hitting the octave button like on the keyboard, Durej, is that how you would say that? I feel like that's pretty close to saying your name right. So using popular samples versus warping them and finding new samples. Maybe that's a good thing to talk about. I honestly haven't been getting too many things from Splice recently, because I've been, and I'll show you all that, like doing like the doll list thing. But when I look for samples, I'll usually always do like instead of showing the results by like relevant or like newest, I'll do random. And I like to do that because like I feel like most people are probably going after just like, okay, relevant and whatever the newest thing is. And I think that depends, because like for some drum sounds, like I don't really care about drum sounds, and I don't care if like a drum sound is in like another song. But when it comes to like using vocal samples or anything like that, like usually I'll I'll pitch everything one way or another, or chop it up, or try to, it's a lot like the cooking show Chopped. Like you need to transform the ingredients. That's kind of how I think about it. There's lots of metaphors to food and making music, I feel, and that's the thing. I want to like transform it, and that's tricky too, because sometimes you find exactly like what you want and then start building around that. But like for me, I always try to change the samples, unless it's like drum samples, then I'll just like tune it. In Irwin, do you ever start creating the drop first? Almost always the main section of the song, whether that be a drop. I mean, I guess you would call that the drop. But yeah, I'll almost always like start with that. If I'm making like, like sort of banger-esque stuff. But usually like what I tell people is like, because I think that's the thing. It's like a lot of people do start like with the intro, but I feel like the thing with that is like if you're starting to build the intro up to the drop, but you're building the intro first, like you don't necessarily know where you're going, right? Like it's almost like building a road to a house, but you don't know where the house is going to be and what the house is going to be like. So I like to start with like the main thing first, and then build around that. Because once you have the main thing, then you can take pieces of that and sort of turn that into a more elaborate idea and start building other sections that correlate to, that thing. It's kind of like the drop is sort of, again, another food analogy for a salad. The drop is like the lettuce and, the kale or whatever else you're going to have in there in terms of like the lettuce stuff, the green stuff, and then everything else, you're just going to sprinkle some stuff in, right? And pull some things from that. Scott, about the glue compressor. Yeah, I use the glue compressor quite a bit on stuff. And I don't know if it's on this one. Yeah, I mean, the glue compressor, it's not set in over. It usually is set in oversampling mode, and just have the soft clip turned on, just to be able to sort of limit things, You get stuck building that road all day long. Oh, that's Matt. Yeah, you're getting there though, bud. So yeah, like I said, like in here, there's, again, percussion samples, like, the only thing here, and this is honestly, for me, this is so fun to go through this session because I haven't looked at this in so long. So we have just a simple loop, and I think what I did with this, so let's see, I must have, oh yeah, let's do this, show in browser. So let's listen to the original drum sample. Cool. So yeah, as you can see, like the original drum sample's at 106. But then here, I basically doubled the tempo to make it halftime. And instead of using Complex or Complex Pro for this, like let's listen to the difference of like if you put Complex on this, and this is stretched out, like the tempo's doubled basically. Like here, how kind of like washy that is, whereas with this, you still get the transients. So beats mode, set it to preserve on the transients, and then use this first one where it's just going to play through the transient, and then this kind of turns into your decay time for it. Super useful on drums. Do I typically use a drum rack or samples for drum fills? Probably samples. I think so. I mean, I'll do some drum fills. I guess maybe I don't do many drum fills with the drum rack because I like to have control over the tails of everything and being able to pitch up every sample very quickly and move it around. And sometimes it's just a little longer. It takes just like a little bit longer doing that with the drum rack. But this, as far as the drums in this song, like it's nothing special. There's some EFX, and honestly, I think these are Sample Magic 101. These riser samples I have been using for like since like 2012 or something, like because some of this stuff like it's fine, that works. Yeah, and adding some, I guess that's another thing that I do a lot of, is like adding EFX in like the main sections, just sort of like in the background, and like this is hitting on the snare, especially because I think this, yeah, so you don't have any hats or anything here for this, the first little bit of this drop, and then once the snare comes in, then we have that EFX to sort of, I don't know, just give it a little bit more impact. And honestly, you don't even really notice it, right? But if you take it out, you definitely notice it, right? Yeah, so little things like that I find are super useful. Let's go back to this little drum loop. Oh, that's another thing we should talk about too. We should talk about the groove pool on drum samples. So this is like one way that I like to change loops, especially if I'm not going to change the pitch. Like for this example, like I didn't change the pitch or anything to this, but change the tempo of it, set it to beats mode, and then using the SP1200 swing on it. And the beautiful thing about using the groove pool on audio is once you have it set to this beats mode and have it set to transients, then it's actually, as long as you're okay with how the tails are happening, and that's why, like with this, because it's stretched out, like the tails by default are going to be longer, but adjusting this down here is going to shorten the tail, but it's still going to keep the transient, right? So because it's keeping the transient and everything, that means you can add a groove onto it, and it's actually going to just shift the transients, as opposed to like when you put a groove on something that's in complex or complex pro mode, then it's going to make the audio like sort of like washing everything, because like the second that you turn on complex or complex pro mode, you're degrading the transients at least by a little bit, even if you're not changing the tempo. So that's something to keep in mind, and that's also a great way to just like make things sound a little different. And the groove pool is great. And I think, let's see, so the groove pool, I'm not even using the groove pool on any of the main drums, but on some of this other stuff, like as you see, we're adding a groove to it. Yeah, the groove pool is a way to sort of humanize things. That's why I love it so much. And you can also, if you guys didn't know, you can right click on any audio, and where is it? Where's the extract the groove from it, which is super fun to do. Super fun to do with songs that you really enjoy, or like say, instead of wanting to add a groove onto this loop, like say I found a really great loop that has a great groove and I want to base the whole rest of the song around that groove, then I would just, right click there, extract that groove, and then you have that to put on everything, which is super, super useful. So, and on that note, in terms of processing loops and stuff, is sort of changing and transforming the basket ingredients. One thing that I typically do, and again, I must have been using like Ableton 9 or something. Like, why is this super old? But doing the little delay trick where, you set this on milliseconds and unlink the left and right, and then just shift one of them. And I think if you're wearing headphones, you may be able to just sort of hear this difference. Yeah, so that's without it. And that's with it. So you're basically just delaying one side, which then creates this like pseudo stereo effect. And I find this is super useful for percussion things and stuff that's that you don't need to be like carrying all the weight. Like I would never add this to like the main snare and the main kick drum, but anything that I want to go around that, I'll usually do this with. So let's listen to it like with the drums, then turn it off. You have to listen closely to kind of hear the difference, but it basically just spreads it out, leaves room in the middle for the kick and snare. It just kind of makes space, and I like it. I think it's kind of, if you're worried, if you're worried about phasing and stuff, using this trick might not be for you, but I don't know. It seems to work fine for me. And again, just using it on little things, like stuff that that doesn't need to be right out front. And it's super good if you're layering multiple sounds that are kind of playing the same thing, like synth layers. Super, super useful for that. Let's talk about the EMT 250. I'd say this is probably my second favorite reverb. This is UAD. And this is just incredible. This is such, I don't know, I guess for people that are like way older than me, you know how people like talk about like with the first time they saw Star Wars or something? Like the first time I heard this reverb was a lot like that for me. It's like something I'll never forget. And it even makes me a little emotional just thinking about it. But this is an amazing, amazing reverb. And I'm not really using it much on this track, but just for anybody that hasn't heard this reverb, like... there's a lot of different modes on here too. You can do just like an echo. I mean, it's so sick, and it has the like special or like space mode. That's like it's huge. But I use it. This is like one of my go-to reverbs for sure. This and the Lexicon, which we'll talk about that in a little bit. But I love this thing to death. I love to put it on so many different things. And I typically just use the reverb. Like I'll do some of the echo or maybe the delay on this, but a lot of times I just use this for the reverb, and especially for sound design stuff, using the space, or I think it's space or special. I always thought it was special, but I'm pretty sure the SPC stands for space. So yeah, it's Nick. This is called the EMT 250 from Universal Audio. You'll notice that a lot of I almost exclusively use Universal Audio plugins just because their stuff's so good, and I haven't found anything to replace it. And honestly, I've invested way too much money in the stuff to get out of it. So, yeah, I love it. Let's see. There's live drums here, so I wonder. Huh. See, I think I may have... I have a Roland, like, electric drum kit, like the TD, I think 15 kV or some... I don't know, there's some letters after it. And I think I may have actually recorded, like, me playing the drums... It must have been. Or is this from Complete? It may be from Complete. I think it's from Complete. It looks like it's from Complete. Yeah, it must have been from Complete. But yeah, so that was one thing, like with this song, I wanted, like the original name of the song is called Organ, because like in the drop you have that. I guess before the horns were in there, it was just an organ. So I guess I recorded some like live-ish drums with Complete, just because I wanted this to have sort of like a band feel to it. And obviously Dom from Big G really helped me out with that, with doing the actual like real sax on it, because like I think originally that part was a trumpet, excuse me, a trumpet from the Jupiter 80. And then I think I took some sax from the Jupiter 80 as well. But let's see. Here, man, my throat is. I got the Haas effect in my mouth, you know what I'm saying? So for the drums, here's something that I kind of must have started doing around this time is doing some. Oh yeah, I guess I made a drum chain, huh? I must have. It's what's so fun about going through sessions that you haven't seen in years. It's like, what was I thinking? But yeah, so doing this mid-side EQing, I guess I needed that on the drums. I don't really. Maybe in headphones you can hear a difference, but this is something I just got in the habit of doing, is cutting the sides out. So if you don't know, you can pop into to mid-side mode right here, as opposed to just the the stereo or the left-right mode. So yeah, just cutting out the sides and keeping the, I don't know, I guess just keeping the stereo image in check and not letting too much of the low end stuff like interfere and be on the sides. I find that really, really helps like clean up mixes, is just cutting out, and I think I'm pretty sure that's why in Ableton 10 with the utility plugin, they sort of built it in here where you do this bass mono and then you have a cutoff. So that, because this is basically doing the same thing that you would be doing here on an EQ8 and just, cutting out the sides, right? Because then you're turning all of this stuff down here into mono information. So I find that helps a lot. And then obviously, use the utility. It's just as a good thing. And this is great to have on the master as well. And typically I'll do that on the master as well. And I guess I didn't do it on this because this must have, again, I'm like starting to remember some of the things that I was doing, some of the things that I learned around this time and then have changed from then to now. Did I say that right? Yeah. Why did you not low cut in EQ8 in your drum chain? I don't know why I didn't. I guess I didn't feel the need to. And I feel like I've gotten a little bit better about my like the processing on the actual drums, because sometimes I would cut some stuff out there. Because again, this is a pretty old session, so because I feel like I did start doing the mid-side stuff on my drum groups sometime after this session, so yeah. Okay, we're only through the drums. Great. Again, so an impact thing here. This is again from like a 10-year-old sample pack that still works really well. So, here's something interesting, huh? Wonder what I was doing with this. I love making MIDI effect racks, and using, again, like I said, using the MIDI effects. And sometimes this is what I'll do. I'll have like a like I honestly don't know what's going on down here and why all this stuff is on here. Maybe I was playing in scale for this, but a lot of times I'll have like if I have multiple bass sounds or even like pad sounds, I'll just have one master like MIDI channel, and then this MIDI channel will then send to all the synths. That way you only have to program or record one MIDI channel or one MIDI track. So let's, again, like I said when we started this, I feel like this was like the first and like last good sound that I made with Serum. So yeah, this is all pretty simple too. And I think shortly after this, I recorded all of this stuff like onto its own. I mean, maybe that's what this is. Yeah, just like resampling it. So I think that's what I eventually did. And this is a pretty lackluster processing chain on this Serum, just like multi-band dynamics. But then this is the Moog filter. I remember the first time I heard this plugin, and I absolutely love it. And the thing that I love about this specifically especially for dance music and for a lot of the stuff that I kind of do. Because it's been like, I wouldn't call it a secret weapon, but it's been like one of the things that I've used on like almost everything. Almost every single bass sound is going to have this guy on it. And the thing that I love about it, and I feel like a lot of people won't love this, and maybe it's a turnoff, excuse me, for some people, but you'll see the filter cuts off at 12K. So it rolls off some of that high end, and you can kind of bring it back in by, bringing up the resonance a little bit. But I like that it does sort of roll off the top of things, because it makes stuff like, I think you can still make stuff sound pretty bright, but you're able to sort of just take care of some of that high end, those high end frequencies. And I mean, this thing is so sick. Like, you have a plus 20 dB drive on here to like, it'll self oscillate too, just like the real ones. Yeah, so this, I love this filter. Love it, love it, love it. The drive on it's so good. I mean, you can mess with the LFO too. The LFO is great. You have band pass, high pass, low pass. And so, yeah, this will be at the end of almost every single, I mean, a lot of synth sounds too, honestly, but almost every single bass sound, I feel like the Moog's going to be there. So I'm really curious what is going on in Serum, because like I said, I have not looked at Serum in probably 4 months. But hey, this is a cool skin though too. I found that out like last year, that you can change the skins for Serum, and I thought this one was really cool because it's like a blue and a green and everything. So yeah, I honestly don't even know kind of what's going on here. The reverb filter. I love the reverb filter, and I think it's probably been overused at this point, but this was the only way I was able to figure out how to make a good sound in Serum. So, just like a couple envelopes, just doing some stuff. We got some frequency modulation from B. I guess this mirror's doing something cool, right? Yeah, and there's some light effects on it. Again, just the compressor and multiband mode, and then a little distortion, like nothing crazy. And then let me see. I feel like, yeah, I think I just made variations of whatever the original patch was that I came up with, which must have been this one. So that's something I used to do a lot of, and I guess just since I'm not using Serum so much anymore, I don't really do this, but taking whatever it may be, a soft synth patch, like a bass patch like this, and getting it to sound, pretty cool, whatever, and then duplicating that, and then making just very, very small adjustments to it, to the next one. And even these are kind of playing different. I mean, I guess this top one is doing this, like, this might be the
Make your music stand out, get more views, and way more engagement. Bring your music to life. Get Music Visualizer. In every format, even for social media. Get started today. The link is in the description.
The wow. Yeah, that thing, whereas this one is not. So yeah, just like duplicating, and this is named, FM bass 1, and then this one is just regular FM bass, or this is FM bass 1, excuse me, and then this is FM bass 2, and it's called Great because, again, this was like the first good sound that I was able to make in Serum. So yeah, taking the same sound, just making slight variations, layering that on top of each other. I find it super useful, and that's something I used to do with when I used to use Massive all the time. That's what I would do, and I would also do that because the cool thing about Ableton, with its like sort of offline rendering, like when you freeze something, it doesn't do it in real time. It does it on like offline, or whatever you want to call it. But the cool thing is like you can basically be like maxing out your CPU with something like a serum patch or something like that, to where like when you play it, it's like all crackly and everything. But then when you freeze that track, like it's gonna freeze the track without. I mean, most of the time, I haven't had any issues before, and I used to do this when I used a really shitty like original MacBook. So you can like way max out the CPU, but then just freeze the track and basically be able to like get more out of your computer than you could have. It's kind of tricky because then you don't necessarily know the changes you're making, you know, if your CPU is like really crackling when you're trying to hear things. But that's just a nice like CPU sort of like workaround, and to be able to get more out of your computer. So then the third one here. Look at that. Great FM bass number 3. Amazing. Organized. Named well. Let's hear what this one's like. Okay, so then let's play them all together. Yeah, then I think... I don't know, I must have done some sort of like editing on these or something, because what is this? Yeah, these are all kind of just like duplicates and then changing a little bit, and then I must have resampled all of those into here. Okay, cool. Oh, I see there's more. Oh, these are over. Oh, so then on the second drop, I guess some of these are just like slightly different. So yeah, again, they're just like duplicating stuff and like using the same thing sort of over and over again. Not over and over again. That's stupid, but you're just making slight variations to the thing too. Like instead of trying to make a whole new sound, because this sound is already sort of like the main, you know, the star of the show, right? Because you hear that in the first drop. And then just making like slight variations to it. So I'm pretty sure all this is just like, this is gonna be FM bass 1. Yeah. And I imagine just some of this stuff's like a little different. So let's look at the like, I guess this is sort of like a live bass. Yeah, I know, Tim's, your laptop is not great. But yeah, freezing and flattening tracks. It's great, and it's great for productivity, because once you freeze it, you can move on and you can't change it anymore. So I guess around this time I must have been using Komplete quite a bit. So I made this little instrument rack that just has like all the different basses from the Komplete collection, and then just sort of have these chains set up to be able to, let's see, are these all playing together? Oh, I see. The track, like the track on and off, is being automated here by this bass select. So I'm able to, let's see, I'm already lost in the session, bruh. So I'm able to select through any of these basses here. Home row hero, bro. Okay, that's enough of that. But yeah, so this is another sort of thing that I like to do a lot, is like building instrument racks that have, you know, I mean, there's 4 different basses in here, and these are basically all the basses from Komplete. So any type of like live bass sound if I don't feel like plugging in my real bass. Like I'm able to kind of get right away. And again, this is something that I save too. Like you'll see, this is probably already saved in here somewhere. I mean, there's so much crap in here saved, but I'll save this. Yeah, see, it's already there, and I'm not going to override it. But I'll say, oh no, what did I just mess up? No, we're good. We're good. My bad. Just hit tab a few times for Tim's and M's. So yeah, I'll basically build these like instrument racks to kind of have sounds that I'm already happy with, and I'm able to go to very quickly and just save this as a preset and save this in my, in my user library. So it's ready to go. It's already got all the heavy lifting done. And then interesting. So I'm curious if I have different effect racks for all of these. No, it looks like it's all Rick. So yeah, then having, yeah, I gotta take a tab break. Having this effects chain here, which again, I have not opened this session in a long time, so this is very interesting to me. So regular multi-band, and then let's see, we got the Exciter from Ozone 7, sick. Just doing some nice tape saturation. Here we go again with the vintage tape. Great. With everything is just like maxed out on this, basically, besides the bias. And the input drive is a little, not quite all the way at max capacity. And then another, okay, so the Exciter, tape, imager. Okay, so basically, instead of using just one Ozone plugin, I used 3 separate of the like the elements of Ozone. So that makes a lot of sense. And then a Serum FX. So I do remember this, because this must have been when I first got the Serum FX plugin. Just the effects by itself, which. It's nice to have, I think, mainly for the hyperdimension and the filters. And using the reverb filter on this, like, sort of live bass. But I think it's... Yeah, you're going to hear it here. So it sounds like it's flanging, but it's really just, automating this cutoff just a little bit. And you get pretty drastic changes, right? Like, I don't know, that to me sounds sick. Like when I first realized, like, oh yeah, I should use like the reverb filter on like the bass. So that's without any of the effects, just like that's a dry. That's with the Serum effects, and this is with all the Ozone stuff and the multiband. So yeah, I think that's the cool thing about using Serum Effects is that you're able to get access to all the filters and use them on, whatever you want. Let's see what this guy is. Ooh. So I must have... I'm curious what this originally was. Sounds like there's something like bit crushing or something going on there. And that's just the basses all put together. Sampled basses, curious what this is. So yeah, I think I just yeah, I must have once I this is something I'll do too sometimes is consolidating or resampling something like some sort of section, whether it be just bass or like keys and lead and stuff, and then just throwing it into the simpler and then having it on the keys. And using that to like come up with like another section or like a just like a different section. So yeah, I find that super useful, especially just to come up with ideas and to sort of remix your own song. I guess that's like a way to think of it. So yeah, that's most of the bass stuff, and then so the synths, which again I think all of this stuff was off of most of this is just off the Jupiter 80. Interesting. Some more Ozone 7 for you. Yeah, so this is why this song was originally called Oregon, because I think this was like one of the first. I guess I must have just been playing like one of the organ sounds from the Jupiter 80. So let's see what we got going on here. So typical, again, just sound from the Jupiter 80 coming in. Then we have the auto filter. Just using as a high pass just to cut out some of the lows. Haven't seen this one in a while. The SPL Vitalizer. Just using it for some stereo expansion, and then this has like some nice sort of like tube saturation. And I honestly don't use this thing that much, but it's pretty nice. Let me see if we can hear a difference. Yeah, I mean, it does warm it up a bit. So doing that, and then, Jason, this is the fizzy lifting drink with myself, Big G, and Jimmy Tense. And welcome, by the way. So using the it's something I like to do with the auto pan. I'm sure a lot of you are tired of this trick because this has been around for a long time. But using this auto pan, because typically when you bring it up, like your phase is at 180 degrees, which means you're gonna get like the actual auto panning from left and right. But once you throw that down to 0, then this is kind of just acting like it's basically like a synced gate, So you have. Which I think, who did I have this at? Yeah. So you kind of use it, and you can even get away with using this as like as a side chain, sort of, because like with this turn up, then you have control over like the shape of it and everything. So I think there's a few spots on the Galaxies Within Us album that I was using because I was really into the auto pan at that time for some reason, which was fun. And then. So using the organ, again, from the Jupiter 80, which has an amazing organ sounds on it. And I think instead of trying to do like the mod wheel on the actual Jupiter 80, I think I went and just made this audio effect rack with... sorry, I just felt like I just got one of those a phantom phone... vibration. I thought my phone was ringing. But so instead of using the mod wheel to get like the, it's almost like a Leslie effect, right? Like the rotating speaker cabinet. So instead of doing that on the Jupiter 80, I think I just recorded in the organ as it is. Yeah, which is fine. And then made this audio effect rack with the UAD MXR flanger. And again, going back to similar to the EMT 250, I remember the first day that I heard this flanger because I guess I used to always think like anytime, use like the Ableton flanger and like let's be honest, it kind of sounds like shit. Like it's not that great. It's good, maybe like a little pinch of it. Like it's almost like ketchup, right? Like sometimes, maybe that's not a good analogy. I don't know. It's too late for good analogies. What I'm trying to say is that when I heard this MXR flanger, I was like, oh, that's what flanging is supposed to sound like. Like that's what a flanger is supposed to sound like. So, with this flanger, it's like you can do some really drastic things with it, like to get it sounding. Let's see, why is it not? Let's see. Okay, there we go. I guess because I already have automation. Okay, you crank this. Like, it sounds great, man. Like, and obviously I'm turning all this stuff like way up so that you can actually just hear what it's doing. But again, just putting this into an audio effect rack, and then the macros, I believe. Let's look at what those are. Yeah, so the sweep width, sweep speed, mix, and the regeneration here. So yeah, just to give it a little flavor, like I use the MXR flanger a lot, but I'll use it in very small doses. It's like somebody should make a shirt like microdose flanging or microdose flanger, because I feel like that's with chorusing is very similar, but I love the flanger because so much of a lot of like the 70s funk and like soul stuff, I guess the soul leading into like the funk era, a lot of them were using the MXR flanger, all the way to then like Eddie Van Halen, using the the red, I guess that's MXR too. Yeah, it is. It's the red MXR flanger, and Eddie Van Halen's flanger was just like an offshoot of the original MXR and basically just had like the one, I think just like a speed control right on it. So yeah, I'll use flanging a lot, but use it just like a little, just to add some sort of change in the sound, if that makes sense. And I know that is a very ambiguous way to explain it, but just so there's a little bit of frequency shifting and sort of moving to the phase 90. Thank you, Scott. Just so there's some movement, you know what I mean? And you're not necessarily going to notice it, but if you pull the flanger off, like you definitely notice it. So let's see what this... Yeah, I'm pretty sure I remember cranking the shit out of this thing. So this was a piece of a loop. And I really loved the sound. I'm curious what this is going to sound like without any of this. Pretty quiet. So again, this is a really good example of using the transient designer. And again, you can do a very similar thing with the drum bus. But cranking the attack up on something like this, this is pretty, you look at the waveform, like it's pretty quiet, right? But I think once we get to the Moog filter, yeah, we got the drive all the way up to 10. So because we're crushing this sort of like after the transient designer, you'll see that we have the attack cranked all the way up, but then the sustain is almost down to 0. So that's bringing up the transients, and like as you add this drive with the Moog filter, it's by default just going to bring up the tails of everything. And having control over the sustain right here is just so great, because then whereas like if you bring this up, like if we didn't have this on here, like sounds okay, I guess. But you see, we get a lot more of that pluckiness, and it's a lot more controlled. And I love that. I love the Transient Designer, and I think. Oh, Nicholas, is there a way? Yeah, you use the external audio effect, and it's relatively simple as long as you have the ins and outs. You have your audio too, so that's going to be sending to the pedal, and then on the output, that audio from that's going to be coming back in. So you sort of like daisy chain whatever it is into Ableton and into your audio interface, and then you have this dry and wet, and that's going to be how much it sends or how much of the signal you're going to get from the actual pedal or whatever you have plugged in. Yeah. So we could talk a little bit about the Ableton Echo. This is something new in Ableton 10, or that they added with Ableton 10, and it's so good. I love this thing. And I will use this sometimes instead of the... I really like the RE201 from UAD. Again, the Space Echo. I love this thing, but a lot of times, like, just for ease sake, like, you know, just loading up the Echo is so great. And I love that they added this into Ableton, because the delays have always kind of been all right, but I feel like with this Echo they really kind of stepped it up, and it's so nice too that you have this built-in EQ here to sort of cut things out and just really dial in what's being repeated. And then again, like, you know, they consolidated all their delay plugins, so this is, you know, you can do stereo, you can do ping pong or mid side, and then you do have modulation too, which is great to, again, similar to the idea of putting a flanger lightly on things. This is just sort of like, not like warbling, but, you know, it's just changing the frequencies a little bit so you're not listening to the same thing over and over. It's giving you some sort of change, which is great. And then again, you know, we got the sausage fattener. So huge. Moving on. How are we on time? I'm seeing an hour 13 on my end, because I do want to show you guys the setup back here before we leave. So let's see. What is this? Oh, yeah, that original little sample. Nothing too crazy here, but I'm interested to see what Okay. So that's where the original was from, and then, yeah, just pitched it up. No big deal. And let's see, so using the tuner, I guess I was using the tuner just to tune the actual sample and make sure it was in key. And then another, again, I feel like this is a really good session to show off just some of Ableton's built-in plugins, like some of the newer ones. The pedal here is so great, and I love this thing on vocals. I absolutely love it on vocals. Like, I mean, can you even hear that without it on? So yeah, I mean, this is kind of, we can end this song here, because the rest of it is all just kind of, oh, there is some guitar here that I recorded, just real quick, and then I'll get to the mindset stuff. Yeah, so I think it's just using a wah pedal. Yeah, and there's chorus, yeah, the boss chorus, Roland boss chorus. Then again, the EMT 250, and then some Ozone stuff. Yeah, so sometimes, at least around this time and with the album, I was starting a lot of stuff on guitar just to be able to get away from the computer a little bit and have a different, again, like I was saying at the beginning of this, like having different entry points into making music, and not, you know, we could kind of segue this into segue this into the whole idea of mindset, right? Because like with with Ableton, I mean, and really working with any computer, right? Like, I think a lot of us, and I know for me, I forgot that like there's other ways to go about making music, like besides like opening up Ableton and like recording something or like bringing samples in. Like there's a lot of different ways to go about it. So I think keeping that in mind and finding what works for you and having, you know, having like some different options for yourself, like having different, just sort of different avenues and different things that you can play with that isn't necessarily like in the box. And, yeah, guys, I mean, you usually don't need more plugins. Like, I don't know. Maybe you do. Like, I don't know. And I would say if you're going to spend money on plugins, buy the UAD stuff because it's amazing. Yeah, we didn't even get to talk about the Lexicon reverb or the Fatso, but great stuff. Like, and that's what maybe this should also segue into what's going on behind me over here, and we can talk about some of this fun stuff. So behind me, I got to set up the chat here on my on this main computer here. If I can even get this to work, I don't know. I'm just such a noob when it comes to Facebook. Let's see. Okay. Cool. All right. If I can even get this to work. I can see this. I got to turn this down. Sorry, we're going to get... There we go. Cool. Now I can actually see this. All right, let's swap over here, and I'm going to swap mics real quick. Let me know. Can you hear me? That's probably going to be way louder. I'm so sorry. Right here. That's the one I need right there. How's that? All right, you guys let me know, and then I'm going to go over there. I'm going to go back there. Yeah, break for our sponsor. Scott, I mix and master all my own stuff, and I don't recommend that for everybody, but for me, I like to have control over it, even if it's not going to sound quite as good if somebody else did it. Like I always tell my students, like if you send your song out to be mixed and mastered by somebody and it sounds really good, and then that song comes out and then that song does really well, and then you have the next song to like follow up that song, but then the person that mixed or mastered it can't do it, then it's not gonna sound as good as what you just put out. So for me, I would rather, and I'm sorry that the camera's a little out of focus. I feel like it's a little bit better here. I'm just noticing. I'm looking at myself twice. But yeah, I like to kind of take the chance and just like try to mix and master everything myself. It's helpful. But let's check out what's going on over here. Okay. And let me know that you guys can still hear me. Still good. I'm going to give you the thumbs up. You let me know. There's like a 30-second delay I'm just now noticing, so it's good. And you guys hear this? We good? So hold on, I can't see the chat. Sorry, it's like, there we go. Okay, cool. I fixed it out. Sorry, I feel like I feel like your mom joining Facebook. You know what I mean? Or like a mom joining Facebook. So this is like the DAWless sort of setup that I've been building recently. So you'll see like none of this is plugged into a computer other than the main like audio out is going into the interface just so that you guys can hear this through the stream. So what's happening here. So we have the Electron Digitact, which this is a drum machine sampler that's honestly so incredible. It's been so much fun to play with, and this was like the first piece of gear that I got that like sort of led me down this like sort of rabbit hole of trying to get something going without using a computer, and it's been super fun. So we have this. So this handles all the drums, and then you have basically 8 channels of audio. So like really quickly, I can get a beat going. Let me know if that's too loud. So you can quickly get a beat going. You have, these 8 different channels of audio that you can program in, but then you also have 8 different MIDI channels, which is amazing. So I'll try to explain this without getting too technical or letting this be too complicated. And I'll try to describe how everything's talking to each other. So
make your music stand out, get more views, and way more engagement. Bring your music to life. Get Music Visualizer. In every format, even for social media. Get started today. The link is in the description.
The key step is kind of acting as like the main MIDI controller, so I can just change the MIDI channels here to change like the sample. So if I want to go to my kick drum, which is on 1 here, so we have the kick drum, so we can program everything from here. So this is going into the Digitact, and the Digitact is going out of here into the Zoya. So the Zoya is I guess technically a guitar pedal, but it's like a modular system within a guitar pedal. So it has a bunch of modules, has a bunch of effects, a bunch of CV tools that you can use to basically build any sort of patch you want. And that's not limited to effects. You can actually build like this this preset that I have here is basically just like a sidechain compressor. So that's the amazing thing. And one of the most amazing things about this pedal to me is that you can do like sidechain compression without using a computer. But you can also build full on synths on this thing. So let me bring up this. So we're on. So that might be a little quiet for you guys. But yeah, this synth sound is coming all from this pedal, which is crazy. But then on top of that, just let me turn this down. So then we have the SEO2, which is basically just like it's Roland and Studio Electronics like sort of take on like a Moog style synthesizer. I'll actually swap back to the sidechain thing over here, which is on 6. So we got this, and that's being programmed on channel 9. And so this is synced together. So I don't know if you'll be able to see on the camera because I know these lights are a little weird. But when I press play on here, it's going to sync with this. So then so you can just record the MIDI there, and then you have so yeah, I don't know. This has been what's been inspiring me recently, is just having this whole different setup. And I mean, you guys don't even know the half of it because I have a battery pack that all this can hook up to and basically run off of anywhere that I want to, which is so much fun. So much fun. So I'm going to pop back over here so we can close this out. And let me just make sure. When it comes to all the stereo equipment, I see that you have a lot of gear around you. If physical space is limited, then would you turn to the virtual plugins? Don't have the practice with the live instruments. So Yeah, I mean, whatever works for you. And there's so many. I don't know. There's a lot of gear out there. And again, I'm sorry about the focus in here. It's too dark in here for my God camera. There we go. It's a little bit better. So yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of different stuff out there. I think you just need to like look around and like, I don't know. YouTube is such a great resource to find inspiration for just different ways to do things and using different pieces of gear and understanding that different pieces of gear are going to sort of open up new avenues and new, like again, I keep saying entry points, but it's like new entry points to being creative and making music. And this setup here, I mean, I don't know. I mean, the DJ mixer is probably the most expensive thing because I had to buy that for a tour, which it's a great mixer, honestly. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, the Zoya's like 500, the Digitac's like 500, and I think I got the SCO2 for, I don't know, for like 250 or something like that. You just got to look around. Alex, what do you think influenced your sound, and how would you advise students to find their own sound? I think for me, I've always, not always, but from a very young age, I've been into a lot of different genres of music. And I think that's what helped me sort of find a sound. And I think my sound's always constantly evolving, as everybody's sound probably should. So for me, it's just about listening to a lot of different types of music and sort of listening for what's not there, what's not like in the current sort of like, I don't know, like the music that's coming out now, like trying to find little like nooks and crannies where nobody's making a certain type of like music. And that sounds super, super vague, but for me, it's always going back to older music, like a lot of different genres to find inspiration, because like you really never know where inspiration's going to come from. Just as long as you're kind of always on the hunt, like you'll always find something. So I really enjoy going down like Spotify rabbit holes and just looking at genres that I haven't listened to before, or just finding some real like obscure music. I don't know. There's so much music out there. Like, and I feel like the cool thing about listening to different genres is, and I don't want this to be taken the wrong way, but you can steal ideas from those genres. And that stealing isn't even, it's more of like a buzzword just to get your attention. So you listen to this bit so you'll remember it. But to take ideas from different genres and then sort of translate that into your own genre and translate it into what you do. Because it instead of like just listening to the type of music that you want to make, like, I don't know, you're not necessarily going to bring anything new to the table if you're just listening to the stuff, like the exact genre that you want to make, and like you want to sound exactly like this artist. Yeah, because like, and another thing too is that, you know, it's something that I kind of had to learn the hard way, and I think most people probably need to learn the hard way, or will learn the hard way, is that you can't stick out and blend in at the same time. And like, if you want to stand out, then you need to do something different. Or if you want to blend in, then just do what everybody else is doing. You know, it's sort of up to you, but it is like a sort of different philosophy to take more chances when it comes to making music and how you make music too. You know, kind of going back to, you know, and asking about like equipment. Should you get plugins over equipment? You know, it kind of just depends. And I think everybody needs to sort of find their own way and find out what inspires them. And, you know, that's going to change too. And, you know, sometimes I'm super inspired by plugins. Sometimes I am. But then other times, and more times than not, like I want to get away from the computer. I want to be able to make music outside, or I want to like go for a walk and like jam somewhere that's like not the studio, or I just don't want to work like right here. Like I just want to like go out there, and I'll bring like a little thing with me. And also, man, I One thing that everybody could get that is so amazing and such a great idea generator is the one of the pocket operators from Teenage Engineering. And I do not know. Are you over here? Aha! So yeah. This is. Don't buy a plugin. Buy one of these. Let's see if the camera will focus on that. Probably not. Probably get my face out of the way. There we go. We're zoomed, baby. Yeah. Yeah, these are so much fun. Like, you hear this beat on here already? This thing's so much fun. But let's see. Scott, how often do I take breaks while producing? It depends. I try to do the whole, I never know how to pronounce it, but the Pomodoro technique, where you work for, was it like 20, 25 minutes on something, then take a 5-minute break, 20, 25, or it's 25 minutes, 5-minute break, 25 minutes, 5-minute break. Is that it? Yeah, 25 minutes. And then after the hour, then you take like a 10-minute break. And then you do that like 2 or 3 times, and then you take like an hour break. So it depends. Like with the setup back here, like it's kind of hard to take a break from doing this stuff, because I will literally just like stay there and I'll be making music for like 3 or 4 hours before I even know what's going on, which is so much fun. But in terms of like producing, like in the box and looking at a screen, I'll try to take breaks as often as possible. And, you know, I personally like to spend a lot of time outside, which I feel like just helps clear my head. I feel like it makes me be able to hear better too. I don't know if that's something just with being outside and getting natural light or whatever, but I don't know, that it makes me feel good. And it's tricky. And I was actually just talking to one of my students about this this morning. Like, if you don't take breaks when you're working on something, your brain and your ears are kind of doing this like auto EQing thing, where it's because you're listening to something over and over and sort of this persistent sound. And I find it happens a lot with the high frequencies, where you're not going to be able to hear them that much anymore, like after a certain point. So then you're going to be boosting those high frequencies more and more. And that's why sometimes if you don't listen, like if you stayed up super late and like worked on something, you feel like you did a really good job, and then like the next day or 2 days later you listen to it again, you're like, oh my god, it sounds like shit. Like what happened? So that's why taking breaks is so good. And then again, on getting outside more, I like to listen to what I've been working on outside in a different environment. So I'll make bounces of things pretty regularly and then listen to it in a different environment, which I find is like super, super helpful. And just listening on different headphones, right? Or listening like, because in here, I'm working on monitors in here. I have a few different pairs of monitors that I could listen to stuff through. But to actually get in a different environment to where you're not looking at the screen, I feel like it's super useful to actually be able to hear the music. And that's another big thing too. Like working on music, try to close your eyes. That can be super helpful to be able to hear things. Because I think that is sort of a problem with making music nowadays, is that it's all become so visual. So you're more tied into looking at what's happening as opposed to listening to what happened. And I'm sure Matt Timms is going to get a kick out of this, and any of my other students that are here, because I say this all the time. There's a great quote about back in the day when they were using tape machines. Nobody in the session, in a recording session, they're working with tape, whatever, nobody was sitting around and staring at the tape machine the whole time. Whereas now, when you think of the computer as the tape machine, like we're just staring at the screen, right? And we're looking at the sound visually as opposed to really listening to it. So as great as the computer is and everything, I think it's good to keep in mind that like you know, you need to make sure you're hearing it. And I feel like just closing your eyes every once in a while is super, super useful. I find that that's really, really useful. And it's hard though too, because like obviously the computer's amazing and it makes your life a lot easier for sure. But if you can keep that in mind. So any final questions? I feel like I guess if I could, I'm happy to answer any more questions. But if that's right. I'm so sorry. I'm rambling. So Alex asked me about getting signed to massive labels like Monster Cat and Owsla. All of that kind of just happened, honestly. Like I don't know. I've never like sent tracks to a label. I mean, not since like 2008, maybe. I don't know. It seems for things to work out for me, I kind of just need to like do my thing and not try to force anything, you know? That's kind of the way I go about things. So I don't force anything, and I'm not, you know, as great as working with big labels is, it's also not great sometimes. So, you know, don't let your productivity be held back by where you think your music needs to go. And don't worry. I feel like don't worry too much about that. Just get the music done and then worry about where it needs to go. Because until the music's done, you don't have anything to take anywhere. So just finish the music. Let's see. Alex asked about the fan question. What inspired you to make, and is there a special meaning behind the To a New Earth EP? Because that EP changed my life, bro. No exaggeration. Yeah, that the book A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle or Eckhart Tolle. It depends on how you want to pronounce his name. It's like Moog and Moog, which Moog is the right way. I just don't know the right way to say Eckhart's name. But I read that book in college, which is a bit before the To a New Earth EP came out. And yeah, I don't know. That book just really resonated me on a very like basic sort of like self-realization way, or just like being aware of like the moment and how time is like always just like in the moment and how like kind of weird that is. Like that had a big impact on me. So that was what the EP, where the name came from. And yeah, thank you. That was a really special EP to me because I was like just getting into, I don't know, blending the funk, and making stuff sound like it was. Well, I guess a lot of the music on there was sampled. Like there's a couple samples in there, but yeah, let's see. I'm going to try to answer this stuff. Somebody asked about the Secret Labs chair. I love the Secret Labs chair. I wish that they would pay me because I tell everybody to buy one, but they don't pay me. But if you do buy one, tell them that I sent you. And Aaron, I used to have an OP1 like probably 5 or 6 years ago, and I got rid of it because I wasn't using it. But that's like the only piece of gear that I regret getting rid of. I wish I had one now, but I don't want to spend $1,400 on it. But I'd love to get another one. Nice one, Matt. Let's see. Yeah, Power Now is good too. Things from the workshop. Yeah. Yeah, great, Kyle. Yeah, I mean, shows like we're gonna see, man. We're gonna see. How did you just decide on the name Kill Paris, not the meaning behind it, but how you came to that name? I feel like Tim's knows this. But yeah, for the people that don't know, Kill Paris comes from Romeo and Juliet, and Paris is the dude that's like arranged to be married to Juliet, but Juliet's not in love with him. She's in love with the scrub, Romeo. And so Paris and Romeo end up getting in a fight, and Romeo kills Paris. And he kills Paris because he was fighting for his love and for his truth, and Juliet wanted to be with Romeo. Romeo wanted to be with Juliet. And I think that's kind of like, I guess that's the mindset that I feel like I've had from a very young age, and I feel like a lot of that comes from like growing up skateboarding in a town where there was no place to skateboard, like sort of like making the best of each situation and not really taking no for an answer, but then also like it kind of comes back to like personal responsibility and just like making whatever I want to happen like happen and not blaming anybody else for it and actually like going for it, you know. That's kind of always been my thing, and I feel like that's helped me immensely. It really has, like personal responsibility and just like doing your own work and not worrying about what other people are doing and not getting angry about what other people aren't doing for you or what you think they should be doing. It's super helpful to not care about that stuff. But no, I don't know if it was lightning in a bottle. I think because I came up with that name when I was so young and I just like thought it was kind of cool and it was edgy too. And I also love the yin yang of the kill and the Paris, because kill is such like an abrasive word and Paris is such a pretty word. Like I like that too. I like the sort of duality of it. See, James, on average, how long does it typically take you to complete a track? Would you say you are OCD about finishing tracks, or do you like stop working on it if you don't like it? Yeah, I'm not OCD at all, really. I'd say I'm like kind of like the opposite. If I get tired of it, I'll stop working on it. And I throw a lot of tracks away. Because like sometimes I know that I need to keep pushing, and that the pushing through it is going to end with a really great song. But I also know that the majority of the really good things that I come up with, or that I'm able to get out, whatever you want to call it, that I'm able to like manifest, is the stuff that's super, super quick. And I know this isn't like a unique thing for me. I feel like a lot of artists feel this way, where like the best things you do like happen so quickly, like, and they just like happen because I think it comes from a place where you're not, you know, and I talk about this a lot. So for anybody that knows me, I'm sorry that I'm repeating myself, but I feel like to make really good music and stuff that you're stoked on, and that stuff that really does feel like magical, it's like you kind of have to have the muscle memory of whatever it is, the production, whatever stuff you're using, to where like when you start making the song, like you're not thinking play by play in your head about what you're doing. You're just in that flow state and just moving forward and just doing it. Like you're not thinking like, oh, I need to sidechain this group, so I'm going to grab a side chain and then I'm going to do this. Okay, I need to EQ this too. Like you're not thinking like that. You're just dragging all this stuff in here and just doing it. You're just flowing with it. Which is why, sort of going back to about like gear and plugins, I think the most important thing is just knowing how to use what you're using in a way, like maybe you're still learning it, but you know enough to do what you want to do with it, right? Like I hope that makes sense. But just knowing the tools well enough to get the job done without having to think about it too much. You know, it's similar to like building a house. Like you don't want to hire someone to build your house that has never used a saw or a or a drill or something, and they're like learning how to use the tools as they're building your house. Like you don't want that, right? So yeah, just I guess I was just about to say the more you know, but it's not about the more you know. It's about knowing the stuff that you're using and getting really efficient with what you have. Which again, going back to this over here, what I love about this setup back here is that there's only so many choices that can be made with this setup. Now, granted, there's still a lot of choices, especially with that Zoya pedal. You can make choices till you're blue in the face. But that's very different from opening up Ableton, where there's literally a limitless amount of choices that you can and or are going to have to make. So I think if you can limit the choices that you need to make, I think it'll help you in the long run, for sure. And let's finish up with this last one here with Blake. And again, thank you guys so much for having me. Truly a blessing. Huge fan of your music. Gonna get high with such. Oh, thank you. I love that one. What did you use for the main synth? Also, thank you for the art. On the other side note, how many years or months did it take for you to produce until you felt like your music was at a level to push it out to a broad audience? Looking back, was that timing correct? Ooh, this is such a good question, Blake. First off, yeah, "Gonna Get High." That's one of my favorite songs I think that I've made. The main synth is a couple of the sync leads off of the Jupiter 80, and then the trumpet off of the Jupiter 80, and then maybe some distortion, some Moog filters and stuff there. And how many years or months did it take you to produce music where you felt like your music was at the level to push it out to a broad audience? And looking back, was that timing correct? I think I was pushing out my music all the time before anybody was giving a shit. And I remember wanting so badly for people to care about what I was doing. But then, and that's a funny thing that happens, because once like I started to get like plays and was able to start doing shows, like I remember waiting so long for that to happen. And then once that happened, I was like, oh God, like I wish I would have had more time to like prepare and like know what I was getting myself into. So, yeah, I guess the timing was correct, but did it feel like that? Like not necessarily. It was kind of a surreal thing. And still kind of is. So I don't know. Again, not forcing anything, right? Like that's kind of my motto. That's what my dad used to always say growing up: is don't force it. So I try to do that. I try to not force it. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's it. Icon Collective. Yeah, I've been there a few times. And yeah, they seem to be doing their thing. I think for anybody, it's important to be aware of how you learn things and what's going to work for you. Like, because I know a lot of people just say, oh, just like look at YouTube tutorials, but a lot of times it's hard to find what you're exactly looking for, and that also depends on the person's like learning style. Right. So maybe if it's a class thing, you learn better in classes, then, do that. If it's a one-on-one thing and you need like a mentor, then do that. Just be aware of like how you're going to best learn, which I know is kind of hard to find out sometimes, but yeah. Anyways, guys, I love you. Thank you so much for doing this. We only got to go through one song, but I feel like I explained basically every itty bitty detail, except for the real secret sauce, which is my return channels, but that'll have to be for the next one that we do. So thank you guys so much. And Alex, hit me up on what you want me to do with the recorded version of this.